The hiss of decompressing seals brought with it the scent of rust and chilled metal as Mac stepped aboard. The old transport cruiser was long past her prime. Her exterior bore the scars of time-tiny punctures from micrometeorites and stabilizers. In the rear that looked like they'd been mauled by something armed with plasma-tipped jaws. Still, for 79 credits, it was Mac Hale's latest score, and the price was low enough to trigger suspicion. This the whole package? Mac asked the seller, a wiry man whose eyes kept flicking between the ship and the scrapyard gate. The man's outfit didn't match the setting. Fine fabric, wrong district, rumpled like he'd been sleeping in it since last cycle. Completely. Yours now. All registered. His accent was clipped, formal vowels drawn out in a way Mac had never heard in the Outer Rim. Just need the payment. Mac rubbed his grizzled chin and studied the ship again. Even in rough shape, a transport like this could bring in 800 credits at any half-decent reclamation depot. Something didn't smell right. But Mac had long followed a personal rule. With a deal looked too good, don't ask questions. Curiosity inflated prices. Fine. Payment transferred. He pressed his thumb to the chip. Ownership confirmed. The man didn't even check. Pocketed the chip, gave a single nod, and bolted for the scrapyard exit, vanishing into the storm-choked horizon. Just before leaving, he glanced back. One thing he said, voice suddenly firmer, weightier. Don't activate the auxiliary systems until you've removed the tertiary power coupling. Then he disappeared into the swirling dust. Mac chuckled to himself. 2 decades salvaging junkers had taught him Rule 1. Never boot unfamiliar auxiliaries. That was how rookies became space dust. Inside, the ship smelled like ozone and something else, a hint of floral alien perfume that tugged at memory, but gave nothing specific. Mac placed his hand against the bulkhead. It felt cold at first, but warmed subtly under his touch. That was strange. Derelicts didn't warm up, especially. Not ones with no active core. Scanners had shown this ship's systems offline. The internal layout followed standard design. Bridge forward. Engines aft, cargo below, quarters central. But oddities began appearing. Control panels bore symbols that didn't match any Mac had. Sanand he'd seen more than most in his 62 years. The crew quarters, too, felt off. Not just clean luxurious. Materials softer than silk, but immune to the grease on his hands. The real shock waited in the engine room. No fusion core, no drive coils. In their place sat a translucent, crystalline engine. Pulsing with a gentle blue glow, it wasn't wired to anything Mac could identify. But energy pulsed through the room. "I'll be a Martian's uncle, Mac," muttered, pulling his handheld scanner from his belt. The display danced with nonsense. The device glitched, then reset. Again, the crystal gave off no radiation, drew no visible power, yet registered enough flux to short diagnostics. His comm unit chirped. Holloway salvage. Got Mac. It's Davy Port Authority. De Harbor. Master sounded uneasy. That Talonvex cruiser you logged this morning, why'd you take it? Seemed like a good find, Mac said. We're picking up irregular energy spikes from your yard. Mind if we send a tech over? Port Authority never cared unless they thought he was moving contraband. What kind of spikes? Just calibration drift, Davy replied a little too quickly. Routine scan. Nothing major. Mac's brow furrowed. Sure, I'll be here. He slipped the cum away, eyes back on the crystal. Whatever this was, it had Port Authority nervous. That meant it was either illegal, valuable, or both. Best to take that man's advice. Mac moved to find the tertiary coupling. He located a panel that looked just like standard plating. Until his fingers skimmed its edge, the surface went. Transparent like glass, beneath was a tangle of filaments. Surrounding a core that pulsed with the same blue glow. Curiouser and curiouser. Mac whispered, leaning in with care. Mac disconnected the coupling. The blue filaments dimmed instantly, and somewhere within the ship, a faint, high-pitched whine he hadn't consciously noticed fell silent. His scanner chimed, completing its analysis of the crystal in the engine room. Mac checked the readout, and let out a low whistle. According to the data, The crystal's molecular composition didn't correspond to any known element or compound. Either his scanner was on the Fritzor he'd just uncovered, something rare and extraordinary. A loud knock on the hull broke his thoughts. Port Authority. Open up, Hale. That wasn't the tone of a routine checkup. Mac quickly stashed the tertiary coupling and made his way to the airlock. 3 uniformed officers stood outside, but something about them didn't sit right. Their attire was too immaculate, and they stood too stiffly for the typically easygoing Epsilon staff. "Gentlemen," Mac greeted, wearing his well-practiced salvagard smile. "What can I do for Port Authority today?" The lead officer, a woman with a severe bun and sharper eyes, stepped forward. "We're here to inspect the vessel you acquired." "Sure thing. Paperwork's all in order if you'd like to verify." "That won't be necessary." She brushed past him without hesitation. "We only need to confirm a few components." Mac trailed them as they moved through the corridors with a familiarity that raised his suspicions even more. They weren't reacting to the strange layout, they were following it. "You folks seem to know your way around," he said mildly. "Care to share what exactly you're after?" The lead officer said nothing, laser-focused on the door to the engine room. When it slid open, she froze. "Where is it?" Mac raised a brow, playing innocent. "Where's what?" "The quantum harmonizer," she snapped. Her hand drifted toward her sidearm. It should be wired into the propulsion system. "Haven't had time to inventory everything yet," Mac replied evenly. "Just got her this morning." Her eyes narrowed. "Who sold it to you?"
Oh dear.
"Didn't catch a name?" "Guy dressed too nice?" "Weird accent?" The 3 officers exchanged brief glances. "We're impounding this ship," she declared flatly. "It's suspected stolen property." Mac crossed his arms. "I've got the transfer logged and confirmed. You can't just... We can. And we are." She unholstered her weapon, but it wasn't a standard-issue stunner. It pulsed with an energy eerily reminiscent of the engine crystal. "This is a matter of galactic security now." Mac had dealt with enough shady types in his time to recognize when he was outmatched. "Fine, take it. But I want my 79 credits back." The officer nearly smirked. "You'll be compensated accordingly." As Mac stood back and watched them secure the vessel, he felt the tertiary coupling warm in his pocket. These weren't Port Authority, whatever he'd stepped into. It wasn't just a salvage gone sideways. When the imposters were gone and the cruiser hauled away, Mac retreated to his personal workshop at the scrapyard's rear. The place was a cluttered sprawl of half-dismantled drives, torn-out panels, and scavenged consoles, all arranged in a way only Mac could navigate. He pulled the coupling from his pocket and placed it gently on the bench. Had once been a sealed module, was now unfurling, like a mechanical flower blooming in slow motion. Its interior circuitry glowed the same blue as the crystal. "What the hell did I just walk into?" Mac muttered, as if triggered by his voice. The device projected a hologram above the workbench. A video feed flickered into view. Security footage, the ship's interior. The timestamp marked it as 3 days old. There, on screen, was the thin man who'd sold him the cruiser, but he looked transformed. Gone was the nervous seller. He now stood proud, almost regal, draped in flowing robes, woven with shimmering threads of active circuitry. He was speaking urgently to someone. "Off-frame. The revolution has breached the palace," he said. "My loyalists can only delay them. Not for long. I need to vanish." Another voice answered, calm and resolute. "Then it's time." "The Phantom Protocol, Your Eminence." "Yes," he nodded gravely. "Pair the body double and the escape craft. I'll take the Twilight Mandate to the Outer Rim. Once the revolution collapses, I'll return. And the quantum harmonizer, I'm taking it. Too risky to leave behind. Without it, the Twilight Mandate is nothing more than a transport." The footage transitioned. The same man, now dressed in the disheveled clothing Mac had seen earlier, removed the glowing crystal from the propulsion system and slipped it into a concealed compartment. He then detached the tertiary coupling and tucked it into his coat pocket. Mac leaned back, stunned. This wasn't some random stolen vessel. If he was putting this together right, the The man was some exiled monarch selling his own escape vehicle to throw off pursuit. And those Port Authority officers who'd seized the ship, they had it but not the pieces that made it important. Before Mac could digest more, his workshop door burst open. 3 figures stormed inside, clad in black combat armor and pointing weapons at him. "Don't move," barked the leader, a tall woman with a cybernetic eye glowing red beneath the workbench lights. "You've got something that belongs to the free people of the Carnian systems." Mac raised his hands slowly. "I've got a lot of stuff. You'll need to narrow it down. The quantum harmonizer and the control coupling." Her voice was sharp. From Emperor Zex's personal vessel, the woman stepped into the light. "Our sensors picked up the coupling's activation." "Emperor," Mac said, glancing at the still-playing hologram. So that scrawny fellow was royalty. Would have appreciated a heads-up hand, maybe a tip. Her mechanical eye adjusted its focus. "You didn't know who he was? Lady, I buy junk and sell junk. Galactic news doesn't make it out this far." She paused, assessing him, then slowly lowered her weapon. "I'm Commander Rhea Voss, Revolutionary Vanguard. The man who sold you that ship was Zexian III, Emperor of the Carnian Empire, architect of decades of oppression and war. He's ruled with blood and fear across 3 spiral arms." "And now?" Mac asked. "Now he's running. We've liberated his systems one by one. But if he still has the harmonizer, he's a threat. That device can power weapons capable of annihilating entire star systems." Mac looked toward the coupling resting on the bench. "And this thing is the control module? Useless alone, but required to operate the harmonizer." Mac scratched his beard. "So I've got half of a doomsday machine, and your Emperor's got the other half?" "Exactly. And we need to find him before someone loyal to him does." Mac mulled it over. Didn't care for empires or revolutions, but galactic superweapons were bad for everyone, including his retirement plans. "What do I get if I help?" Voss's smile was thin. "Aside from not being executed for aiding an Imperial fugitive, how about a full pardon for every smuggling charge in your recordand? Enough credits to live out your days in comfort?" Mac laughed. "Nice offer. But retirement's dull. How about exclusive salvage rights to every Imperial vessel you capture in this sector?" Her human eye twitched in surprise. "Ambitious, but acceptable. If you help now, deal." Mac pocketed the coupling and stood. "So, how do we find a fallen emperor?" Mac Holloway had seen his share of crises in 62 years' solar flares. Economic crashes, even the occasional warrant but hunting a fugitive emperor alongside. Revolutionaries was new. He stood aboard the Liberation, Commander Voss's ship, his grease-stained jumpsuit and scuffed boots contrasting sharply with the polished uniforms of the Vanguard crew. His face was weathered, his beard streaked silver, his belt weighed down with tools. The tertiary coupling hung at his side, sealed in a protective casing. "The Emperor will need a way off-world," Voss said, eyeing a projected map of Outpost Epsilon. "We've locked down the spaceports." Max snorted. "If he's half as smart as you say, he won't touch official launch sites. You have a theory? Epsilon wasn't built from nothing. It's wrapped around abandoned mining ops from the first settlers." Max zoomed the map out, revealing buried tunnel systems. "These shafts connect to at least 3 surface exits beyond the perimeter. Great for sneaking off-world." Voss raised a brow. "How do you know this?" Mac winked. "Import taxes are brutal. I've had to get creative with deliveries. You'll guide us." "If I were guessing, I'd say he's heading to the northern exit closest to the Badlands. Mineral deposits there mess with scanners." Voss snapped orders. Minutes later, Mac sat aboard a Vanguard transport speeding across Epsilon's dusty plains. Beside him rode Voss and 2 operatives, Tar. Got a giant silicon-skinned brute and Lumi, a tiny woman with mood-shifting eyes. "So," Max said, glancing at them, "what's the plan when we find him?" "I'm guessing ask politely, isn't it? The superweapon isn't up for negotiation. If we must, we take it by force," Voss replied flatly. "The quantum harmonizer must not fall into the wrong hands, and the Emperor must answer for his crimes." Mac caught the cold steel in her voice. Justice or revenge? Voss's jaw clenched. Is there a difference when the death toll is counted in billions? Before Mac could respond, the transport came to a halt at the base of a jagged cliff. A narrow crack in the stone face marked the entrance to the old mining tunnels. Movement. Detected, Tar announced, scanning the fissure. Someone passed through here within the last 2 hours. Voss nodded grimly. We go in, Holloway, with me. Tack, let me secure our exit. The tunnel wound narrowly into the earth, forcing them to move single file. Aging knees creaked in protest as they descended into Epsilon's crust, the air growing musty and cold. His helmet lamp cast flickering light over decaying support struts and rusted mining gear, ghosts of a long-dead colonial dream. After 20 minutes of descent, the passage widened into a chamber that had once processed her. In the dust lay fresh boot prints, leading to another tunnel. He's ahead of us, Voss whispered, raising her sidearm. Max studied the prints. These boots are military issue, not the fancy ones our Emperor was wearing earlier. Tensed. Loyalists. As if summoned by the word, the chamber flared in white light. Energy weapons powered up with a whine. When Mac's eyes adjusted, they were surrounded 8 soldiers in sleek armor bearing an emblem he didn't recognize. A star encircled by 3 orbiting planets. Commander Voss. One said his helmet, retracting to reveal a scarred face augmented with glowing implants. The Emperor anticipated your pursuit. I am General Drav, loyal servant of His Eminence. Voss lifted her weapon. Surrender, Drav. The Emperor's reign is finished. His empire is dying. Drav's smile was pure frost. A temporary disruption. Once we reclaim the quantum harmonizer, order will be restored. His eyes shifted to Mac, and I believe this man holds the control coupling. Mac raised his hands. I'm just a mechanic who wandered into the wrong tunnel. Mechanic who knew not to trust our Emperor, Drav said coolly. But now, hand over the coupling. Voss stepped between them. You'll have to go through me. With pleasure, Drav said. Aiming his weapon, Mac saw his moment. If he gave them the coupling, he'd likely be executed or worse by both factions eventually. So he chose a third option. He slipped a hand into his pocket, thumbed the emergency beacon he'd prepped in the Vanguard transport, then dropped and rolled toward a rusted ore conveyor. Chaos erupted. Blasts crisscrossed the chamber, heating the air and searing old metal red hot. Under the conveyor, Mac counted. 3, 2, 1. The tunnels trembled as hidden charges detonated charges he'd planted while everyone was distracted. Alabri rained down. The exits weren't sealed, but navigating them would now be slow and dangerous. In the confusion, I grabbed Voss's arm and dragged her toward a side hatch he'd noticed earlier. What the hell are you doing? She hissed, improvising. Mac grunted. I'm not dying in your revolution or his empire today. The passage climbed steeply, lined with rusted rungs. They scrambled upward, the sounds of battle fading below. You betrayed us, Voss spat between breaths. I made a third choice, Mac shot back. You've got your war. He's got his throne. Nobody asked what I wanted, and what do you want? To live long enough to enjoy the credits you promised. They emerged into another tunnel that, by Mac's reckoning, would exit about 2 kilometers south of where they started. They moved quickly, the echo of pursuit gaining. The coupling, Voss said sharply. Did you lose it? Mac patted the container at his side. We're still here. But your Emperor's got the harmonizer? Then we find him before Drav does. Mac stopped. Why should I help you? A few hours ago, you were ready to shoot me. Voss's cybernetic eye pulsed softly. Because despite everything, I think you care. You didn't have to come back. For me, this isn't just about money to you, Mac snorted. Don't paint me as some rebel hero. Commander, I'm a realist. A superweapon's a terrible idea in anyone's hands, Emperor or revolutionary. It's bad for business all around. Then help me secure it, Voss replied. After that, name your price. Mac considered. I want my ship back. The one your fake Port Authority friends commandeered. That was an Imperial loyalist team, not ours. Don't care. I want it returned. And those salvage rights still on the table? Voss hesitated, then nodded. If we can retrieve the ship, it's yours. Then we have a deal. Resumed walking. And I might know where your emperor is hiding. The surface of Outpost Epsilon was in full disarray when they emerged from the tunnels. Sirens screamed through the dusty air. Security personnel dashed about, directionless. Smoke coiled upward from what looked like the Port Authority's headquarters. Yours? Mac asked. Voss shook her head. Not our style. This is Imperial. A distraction. They hijacked an abandoned ground vehicle and made for Mac's scrapyard. Oddly, the area seemed untouched amid the spreading chaos. That alone made Mac uneasy. So why here? Voss asked, as they parked the transport behind a stack of derelict hull plating. Think it through, Mac said. Stage his escape. Creates a diversion to muddy the trail. But the one place nobody would look? She frowned. The place he supposedly left. They crept toward the workshop. Mac's instincts were spotting. Movement flickered through a smeared window inside, the thin silhouette of Emperor Zexion. 3 hunched over Mac's workbench, tools clutched in his bandaged hands. What's he doing? Voss whispered. Looks like he's trying to build a new control coupling, Mac guessed, patting the container at his hip. But without the right schematic, he'll never pull it off. We have to move now, Voss said, before his loyalists return. Mac raised a hand. Wait, something's off. They watched as Zex connected 2 components. Small explosion sent him staggering back. He clutched a burned hand but quickly returned to work. He's desperate, Mac. Noted. Desperate people make mistakes. All the more reason to move in. Or, Mac scratched his beard. We offer a deal. Voss turned to him, stunned. You want to negotiate with the architect of genocide? You want the harmonizer? He wants the coupling. I want my ship and a way out of this mess. Mac shrugged. Seems we've all got leverage. Can't be serious, dead serious. Let's say you capture him, what then? Trial, execution, new regime takes over with the superweapons still intact? We're not tyrants, she snapped. Not yet, Mac replied. But power does strange things to noble intentions. Before she could respond, Mac stepped out from behind the scrap heap and strode toward the workshop. Mac. Don't, Voss hissed, but he ignored her. He rapped his knuckles on the metal doorframe. Your Eminence, he called. I think we have business. The Emperor whirled, a makeshift tool weapon raised in his bandaged grip. He froze when he recognized the newcomer. The mechanic, he said, lowering the tool. M. Holloway. Mac said with a mock bow. Owner of the ship you sold. Keeper of the part you need. Zex's eyes narrowed. You have it with you? I do, but I've also got a revolutionary commander outside who'd love a word about your harmonizer. To Mac's surprise, the Emperor laughed. It was a brittle, hollow sound, of course. The universe enjoys irony. He sighed and let the tool drop. Come in, both of you. It seems we have much to discuss. Voss entered, weapon drawn and eyes. Hard Zexian 3, she began, by the authority of the free peoples. Yes, the Emperor cut her off, exhausted. Atrocities, oppression, crimes against the sentient order. Can we fast forward to the bargaining? My hand is killing me? Mac took a long look at the man. Up close, the once feared ruler looked even worse than when he'd first sold the ship. His once fine robes were stained with grime, and a poorly wrapped burn on his left hand leaked something that wasn't entirely blood. You look awful for royalty, Mac observed. Former royalty, apparently. Zexian gestured around the cluttered workshop. The mighty have, indeed, fallen. He nodded toward Mac's side. Now about that coupling. Not so fast, Voss interjected. First, the harmonizer. The Emperor slowly reached into his tunic and retrieved a small container. Inside, the glowing blue crystal pulsed brighter than Mac remembered. Content? Zexian asked. I could have leveled this entire settlement with it. The fact I didn't should earn me some credit. It earns you the absence of another war crime, Voss replied icily. Mac stepped between them. All right. Here's my pitch, Zex. You hand over the harmonizer to Commander Voss. Voss, you guarantee I get my salvage rights and return my ship. Both of you ensure I walk away safe and neutral in this war of yours. And what's in it for me? The Emperor asked. Mac held up the coupling, a head start. Once you're gone, I disable this permanently. No one uses the weapon. Absolutely not, Voss snapped. The harmonizer is too dangerous too. To what? Mac interrupted. To exist? Then destroy it. To control it. That's my point. Zexian studied Mac with interest. You're more clever than you appear, mechanic. And you're more disappointing up close, Your Highness. To Mac's surprise, the Emperor laughed genuinely this time. Fair enough. He turned to Voss. Your revolution's already won, Commander. My empire is crumbling system by system. I just want to vanish with what time I've got left, after the things you've done. Voss's voice shook. Entire worlds enslaved, millions dead. What will killing me fix? Zexian asked. Will it undo genocide? Rebuild shattered planets? Or will it just feed your revenge? The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by distant sirens wailing through Epsilon's chaos. Max stood between two collapsing worlds, marveling at the absurdity of the moment. Finally, Voss spoke. I want the harmonizer dismantled. Here, now. I watch and I verify. There's no way to rebuild it. Zexian nodded slowly. And in return, you get 24 hours. After that, if we catch you again, the revolution brings justice. The Emperor turned to Mac. And you, mechanic, what's your cut? Mac gestured to the coupling. I break this thing. I get my ship, and both of you leave me and my yard out of it. For good. Zexian hesitated, then nodded. Terms accepted, boss. Lowered her weapon slightly. So do I. And so began one of the strangest hours in Mac. Holloway's long career, in the same workshop where he'd spent decades tinkering with broken plasma injectors and outdated nav systems. The former Emperor of the Carnian worlds methodically disassembled a super weapon. Voss stood over him, watching every move. Mac fetched tools, occasionally offering advice despite himself. The Emperor's grasp of advanced systems impressed him. You handle quantum hardware like someone who's been doing this for years, Mac remarked as Zex separated two interlinked crystal nodes. I was an engineer before I was a ruler, Zex replied without looking up. I built this thing myself, and then weaponized it to wipe out civilizations, Voss said sharply. Zexian paused. Yes, I did. For the first time, his face showed something like remorse. Power corrupts in ways you don't expect until you've tasted it. He looked at Voss. Remember that when your revolution wins. Well, they dismantled the harmonizer. Mac focused on the coupling. He disabled it, thoroughly removing key elements, burning out conduits, and carefully sealing the housing again to make it look functional. Neither Voss nor Zexian objected. Both seemed satisfied that the device could no longer be used. When he finished, Mac handed the inert coupling to Voss. It's done. Completely useless now. She inspected it and nodded. Your ship's being returned. I've sent the order. Zexian stood and dusted off his tattered robes. Then this concludes our arrangement. Almost, Mac said. One last thing. Why me? Why sell me the ship? An emperor on the run had to have better options, Zexian smiled. The best place to hide, Zexian said thinly, is often the one everyone overlooks. A fleeing emperor hiding in his own ship? Too obvious. But a derelict transport sold for scrap with the key components removed? He gave a weary shrug, far less likely to attract attention. Or so I believed. Your 24 hours starts now, Voss said, glancing at her timepiece. Use it wisely, Zexian. The Emperor gave a half-bow mock formal. Your kindness knows no bounds, Commander. We turned to Mac with a tired smile. A pleasure doing business with you. In another life, we might have made decent colleagues instead of temporary allies of necessity. Then, without another word, he stepped into the swirling chaos outside the workshop and vanished into the streets of Outpost Epsilon. Voss watched him go, her expression unreadable. You know, he'll probably rebuild somewhere, she said. Maybe. Mac replied, Or maybe he'll remember what it felt like to be an engineer instead of a ruler. You're a strange man, Holloway. Most people would have sold us both out for a better deal. Mac shrugged. I'm too old for revolutions and collapsing empires. I just want to fix ships in peace. At the door, Voss paused. Your ship? We'll be in Landing Bay 7 by morning. Salvage rights paperwork will be included. She studied him for a long beat. You know, the revolution could use people with your talents. Appreciate the offer, Max said. But I've had enough politics for 10 lifetimes. After she left, Mac dropped into his chair with a groan, suddenly aware of the weight of his years. He sat in silence, replaying the past day, buying a suspiciously cheap cruiser, bartering with a dethroned emperor, mediating between a war criminal and a revolutionary. Not bad, he thought, for a supposed nobody from the Outer Rim. True to Voss's word, the next morning his ship awaited him in Bay 7. From the outside, it looked the same, scuffed, scarred, and neglected. But Mac now understood what it really was, a disguised Imperial escape craft with layers of hidden history beneath its hull. He stood on the chilly landing pad, jumpsuit zipped up, toolbox in hand, and looked up at the vessel. It loomed above him like a sleeping beast, patched but proud. He reached out, ran a hand along the plating, and felt again that strange warmth blooming beneath the cold metal. Just like the first time, a sudden sound behind him made him turn. Young Officer Real Port Authority, this time approached with a datapad. Mr. Holloway, I just need your signature to finalize the retransfer. Mac signed and watched the officer disappear into the mist. Then he turned back to the ship. His ship as he climbed aboard, a grin tugged at his lips. Whatever Voss's people had done to scrub it, they'd left behind plenty of tech still worth exploring. The interior felt different, cleaner, streamlined. Tracking devices and Imperial emblems were gone. But something else had changed, too. Mac reached the bridge and dropped into the captain's seat. His fingers moved across the unfamiliar controls. Let's see what you've got under all that rust. The consoles flickered to life around him. The soft hum of the systems was accompanied by that same distinctive blue glow he'd seen in the harmonizer. For one tense moment, he wondered if Zexion had lied. Had the weapon truly been dismantled? But this energy felt ... different. The interface responded to his touch, no, to his thoughts. The ship's systems were syncing with him, learning him. A message appeared on the central screen. Twilight Mandate Systems. Online new owner recognized. Mackenzie Holloway, welcome aboard, Captain. Mac leaned back in the seat, slow grin spreading across his weathered face. Captain, he could get used to that, as Outpost Epsilon shrank behind him and the stars stretched out ahead. Macalawamaconic salvager. Accidental negotiators set a course toward the edges of charted space. In a galaxy torn by rebellion and ruin, there were always advantages to being unaffiliated. A man with an Imperial-class ship and no loyalties? That opened doors and tucked away in a secret compartment Mac had stumbled across during his final inspection was a single, unassuming data crystal. Not the weapon itself. Mac wasn't a fool. But the full schematics for both the harmonizer and the coupling. Knowledge, not credits. And sometimes, Mac thought, the best salvage wasn't something you sold. Sometimes it was the power to choose to keep it, to hide it, or to decide what never sees light again. He tapped the throttle. The Twilight Mandate glided into the darkness between starzits, Captain heading toward whatever future he chose to make.